It's time for another how-to basic compendium. This time featuring the Undead. In this guide I will go over all the unit and hero choices and try to give you an idea of the overall gameplay and strategy of the race in all matchups. So get ready for a wall of text as we scratch the surface of this race consisting of walking corpses, disembodied spirits, damned mortal men and insidious extra-dimensional entities. Pros and cons. Pros. Burst damage. Undead is notorious for being great at bursting down targets one by one. The most obvious reason for this is the devastating combination of Death Coil and Frost Nova. It's, however, not the only reason, as Undead also have several other traits which assist bursting single targets. Among these Orb of Corruption, Crypt Fiends, and Destroyers, but more on that later. Rod of Necromancy. Allowing you to both creep efficiently, harass and scout, Rod of Necromancy offers a lot of versatility. A must-have in all matchups. Strong base. An undead base with a good layout is nearly impenetrable for the enemy. Workers are hidden well in the back, the slow from your main structure and Nerubian towers makes both fighting and running away much more inconvenient for your opponent, and the structures are generally quite bulky. Strong timing attacks. With Undead you reach some strong peaks in terms of power level, which you can use to land devastating attacks against your opponent if timed correctly. High skill ceiling. Undead is not a race with a lot of flexibility for creative and innovative playstyles, but they have a ton of room for refinement. If you micro well you can achieve an incredible amount and win fights that you, on paper, have no business of winning. Cons. Weak sustain. Until you achieve Obsidian Statues you don't have much sustain. The Tomb of Relics contains no Clarity Potion for mana, nor items for healing like Scroll of Regeneration or Healing Salves, and Ritual Dagger is widely considered a poor item in the vast majority of situations. Furthermore, your units don't have any natural regeneration except when standing on Blight. Even in the late game when you have Obsidian Statues, your sustain can feel underwhelming as it still doesn't quite compare to Brilliance Auras/Priests, Healing Wave/Spirit Link or Moonwell/Rejuvenation in terms of healing burst. Limited lockdown. One of the key elements of a well-rounded army composition is lockdown. Orcs have Ensnare/Hex, humans have Slow/Storm Bolt, and Night Elves have Entangle/Slow Poison. Undead rely on Lich's Frost Nova, which really doesn't compare well to the others. Undead also have other means of lockdown, but they are not really used for various reasons that we'll go over later. Dependent on Tier 3 tech. Undead is the only race that doesn't have dispelling effects before Tier 3, when they can get Destroyers. Dispelling effects are vital in many scenarios in order to dispel powerful enemy buffs or debuffs. Another reason why Tier 3 is so important is the Orb of Corruption. Even though it recently got nerfed a bit, it's still an units. Acolyte. The Undead's builder units, Acolytes, are sturdy units compared to the races. On top of that, they are positioned in the back of your base, making them difficult for your opponent to kill. If an Acolyte should fall during your tech, it does, however, hurt the Undead more than any other race since you cannot simply replace it with one of your lumber harvester. Therefore I recommend to always get a Nerubian tower quite early in order to make it more difficult to the enemy to harass your economy. Ghoul. Ghouls are the Undead's basic warrior. For their cost, they have a high damage output per second, DPS. Especially on Tier 3 when you can get the Ghoul Frenzy upgrade. Ghouls are, however, not very durable, so more often than not, Undeads do not use them as fighting units, but rather just have them to gather lumber. One of the exceptions is against Night Elf where a Ghoul opening is very common in order to assert dominance early on against a Demon Hunter or to cancel an early expansion against Keeper of the Grove. As a rule of thumb, you should have 3 Ghouls harvesting lumber. Crypt Fiend. Boy, do Undeads love their Crypt Fiends. They are a core component of the Undead army in all matchups. Simply a great unit to get some good DPS and at the same time they work as anti-air with their web ability. They have high damage and a long cooldown, aka good burst. Therefore, when they are being attacked during a fight, you benefit a lot from kiting them back. What I mean by this is, that you should fire off a wave of attacks, then pull back a bit, fire off another wave, pull back, etc. Gargoyle. In competitive play, gargoyles are a rare sight. Sometimes you see a single gargoyle to counter an annoying Zeppelin or on occasion against Night Elf. Back in the day it was actually common to use them against Night Elf, but the map pool has changed to be less favorable for them, and with Night Elf players having learned to deal with them better, they tend to fall short. Abomination. Abominations are Undead's big, fat meat shield. In straight-up combat they can feel lackluster against their equal from other races, knights, taurens, bears. This is why abominations are rarely the Undead army's core unit. That said, it is not synonymous with them being a bad unit. With their upgrade, Disease Cloud, 1 to 2 abominations can have a tremendous impact. Abominations especially shine against opposing army compositions that emphasize on many smaller ranged units, headhunters, riflemen, archers, dryads. Not only do they provide a much needed meat shield, having more units to spread Disease Cloud onto makes the relative impact of the spell much more substantial. Meat Wagon. Meat wagons are arguably the weakest siege weapon in the game. In normal gameplay they don't really have a use, but if your opponent is massing towers in his base, then meat wagons definitely work well to tear his defenses down. Generally speaking, it's just nice to have a siege weapon at your disposal. Obsidian Statue. Obsidian statues are the Undead's main source for sustain. Slowly and steadily, they boost your entire army's mana and health points. On their own, they don't put up much of a fight, so try to keep them safe in your backline so the opponent can't get to them. Destroyer. Earlier, I mentioned that destroyers are necessary due to them offering dispel through devour magic. While this is true, their purpose stretches beyond that. Their base stats aren't that amazing at first glance, but since they are immune to negative spells and are flying, they can be very tough to deal with. When they have mana they amplify their attack with Orb of Annihilation, which increases their damage by 15 and deals splash damage around the target. They start with 0 mana, so make sure to use absorb mana on obsidian statues before morphing them if you already have a destroyer. Destroyers lose mana over time, so make sure not to waste too much of it by absorbing mana too early. Necromancer. Necromancers are the most iconic unit of Undead in terms of flavor and are loved by many, especially newcomers. In terms of viability, the unit is rather lacking, though. There are so many reasons why, that an entire article could easily be written just about the unit. For now I'll keep it short and just give a few pointers. They are very mana demanding, are extremely vulnerable to dispel. On top of that, it is usually difficult for Undead to afford both Slaughterhouse and Temple of the Damned since they depend on getting tier 3 fast. Slaughterhouse is a necessity since it offers sustain, dispel and meat shield, which leads to Temple of the Damned being down prioritized. Undead such as Nightend and Swida have tried to make necromancers work against Orc. The idea is that you can use cripple to cripple, no pun intended, the Blade Master, which is the Orc's main source of damage. Since Orcs prioritize a fast tier 3 in the matchup against Undead, they skip making units with dispel, making cripple a difficult spell to get rid of. The necromancers have, however, not really succeeded in becoming a part of the meta. Banshee. I often refer to Banshees as the sprinkles on an already well-rounded army. Ice cream is good on its own, but to make it optimal you need that delicious licorice topping. That's Banshees to me. They are played in 3 matchups for 2 different reasons. Against Orcs, Curse is great. More specifically against Blade Master, who is their main source of DPS. If you can mitigate his damage output with 33%, then it's a big help. Against Undead and Human, Banshees are used for their anti-magic shell as protection from spells like Blizzard, Storm Bolt, Holy Light, Frost Nova, and the magic attack from Griffins. Shade. Shade is one of the absolute best scouts in the game and scouting is extremely important. That automatically makes Shade a good unit. In shorter games you'll, however, be sated with just using skeletons for scouting as Shade is not an urgent priority. Frost WYRM. Frost WYRMs are big, scary-looking dragons that also pack a serious punch and offer a lockdown effect. They are, by far, the most commonly seen hero for Undead. This is due to 2 of his abilities, Death Coil and Unholy Aura. Death Coil allows you to both heal your own units, kill off enemy units and steal creeps. This kind of versatility can oftentimes be underrated. Unholy Aura is one of the best auras in the game, and it especially complements Undead well. Due to the lacking sustain of Undead, having a hero that chips in with some regeneration goes a long way. The movement speed works well with ghoul openers as it makes it more easy to surround enemy units. Remember how we talked about Crypt Fiends kiting backwards in fights? Unholy Aura helps them travel further in the cooldown time of their auto attacks. It may seem like a rather minute thing, and it arguably is, but these small things do add up. The ultimate of Death Knight, Animate Dead, is rather anticlimactic. So much so, that you normally just want to pick Unholy Aura level 3 instead of it. Lich. Lich is mostly used as the second hero to accommodate Death Knight. The Lich is a ranged hero with a low attack cooldown, and he can be protected well with Death Coil and Frost Armor, so he can get off many attacks during the course of a fight. Therefore, you should make sure to have Orb of Corruption equipped on Lich for maximum utilization. Sometimes we also see Lich as a first pick against Undead. This strategy aims to create an early advantage, either by surrounding the enemy hero or Crypt Fiends with Frost Nova and Ghouls, or by harassing the enemy's acolytes. Dreadlord. When Dreadlord is played as a first hero, you can draw parallels to playing Lich first. Using Sleep and Ghoul Surround, you can get some juicy targets. Here you will have a strong early game, so try to benefit from it by either making an expansion yourself or by delaying the enemy's tech. Though it being a pretty cool strategy, we don't see it in competitive play. The reason being that good micro counters Sleeps around, so you'll have a hard time defeating a skilled opponent. That being said, if played in a ladder game against an unexpecting opponent, you can punish him severely. Read more about the Dreadlord fast expansion strategy here. Dreadlord is also sometimes used as a third hero against Orc as an alternative to Dark Ranger and Pit Lord. The purpose is to use Sleep in order to shut down Blade Master a bit. Sometimes you'll see Blade Master dive alone into the back of your army alone to get hits off on Obsidian Statues or Lich. If you can sleep him while he does so, the enemy will have a hard time cancelling the spell, and the Blade Master will be kept out of the fight for some time. Crypt Lord. Crypt Lord is not a very good hero, and finding a place for him is hard. But all heroes have situations where they work well. Crypt Lord finds his place against human tier 2 riflemen push with casters, or similar strategies like mass archers. As they won't have any front line that you need to pass, you'll be able to set up some great impales that pauses the enemy DPS for some time, giving your abominations time to get in attacking and disease cloud distance of the rifleman. Matchups. vs Human. This matchup is all about timing attacks, either from you or from the human player. If he is trying to fast expand, you should make sure to harass him heavily to delay him as much as possible. Against a fast expanding human, want to go heavier on Fiends than against a one base human. Put him under a lot of pressure, and if he fends off your pressure by having too many towers for you to deal with, go creep. You can creep rather greedily, taking contested creep camps, since his army will come online quite late compared to yours. While fast expanding is still considered the best strategy by many of the top human players, another highly viable strategy is one base with riflemen and priests into a rather early tier 3 to get Orb of Fire, Inner Fire, and 3 heroes. Against this, it is very common to start your tier 3 tech very early, on 30/30th supply. The challenge of the game ends up being who creeps the most. Hero levels are of huge importance. Frost Nova level 2 is huge against riflemen, and Storm Bolt level 2 is huge to focus fire units. Therefore, if you reach level 3 on your Lich faster than the human gets level 3 MK, you should take advantage of this by playing offensively. Same goes for vice versa. Your third hero, be it Crypt Lord or Dark Ranger, is much more impactful on level 1 than the human's third hero, Paladin. Try to use this by playing more offensively before Paladin reaches level 3. Since your tech is faster, there will also be a window of time where you have your third hero and Orb, and the human will have neither just yet. It is quite important that you make use of this window to grab some extra creeps off the map of even force an advantageous fight. vs Orc. This matchup has history of being disliked by many Undead players. The stats does, however, indicate that the match is very even. What I think makes the matchup frustrating for players is that Orc has a lot of tools that can punish mistakes. More specifically, do they have a ton of lockdown, ensnare, hex, stomp, and Orb of Lightning. To play against this, try to keep safety as a priority. Get Death Pact when your DK hits level 4, get Frost Armor as Lich's first ability, make sure to research Fiend's Burrow ability, and overall just try to creep up your heroes. The Orc will oftentimes look to make a sneaky expansion at some point, especially if they play Farseer first, so it's vital that you put effort into scouting with your skeleton warriors from Rod of Necromancy. If you can cancel an expansion under construction, you will both delay him substantially and cost him very important resources. vs Night Elf. This matchup, especially, is won by good micro in battles. Keeping the destroyers away from Dryad range while dispelling, kiting Crypt Fiends against bears, attacking Dryads with ghouls, all the while paying attention to your own hero's position. In big fights you'll feel like you are juggling way too many balls at once. This is both the beauty of playing Undead as well as the bane of many players. When facing a Night Elf player you should go for a Ghoul opening. If the Night Elf plays Demon Hunter you can start with DK's Aura level 1 and be aggressive from the get-go. Try to kill archers, wisps, and even go for a surround on the enemy Demon Hunter when possible. If the Night Elf is going Keeper of the Grove you should be more defensive with your ghouls. It is still fine to harass with Death Knight on level 1, pick coil, try to kill wisps and deny creeps if the Night Elf is creeping. If you see the opponent trying to set up a tree of life, pull your ghouls and try to cancel it. If you can delay, or even better, prevent, the Night Elf getting a second base when playing Keeper of the Grove, you should be in a very good spot going into the later stages of the game. vs Undead. The two most common ways of playing Undead mirror is with fast tech find and Death Knight, known as Ted Fiend opening, or Ghoul opening with Lich. Dreadlord fast expansion has also been rising in popularity in this matchup. The Lich opening is centered around aggression and killing acolytes to delay the opponent's tech and economy. To avoid suffering major losses, your opponent will have to micro well, and even then he might very well lose quite a bit. With the buffs to acolytes, this strategy has gotten a bit more difficult to pull off, but I personally enjoy it thoroughly, so I encourage you to at least try it. The other mentioned opening is playing fast fiends. As Crypt Fiends scale better into the late game compared to ghouls, you can benefit a lot from pumping them out from the very beginning of the game. With this strategy you'll be more inclined to play safe in the early game as you sacrifice early army strength for a fast tech. With both strategies, you usually end up with the same tri-hero combination of Lich, Death Knight, and Dark Ranger. Dark Ranger is a desired hero when you with silence can prevent the enemy from healing. In this matchup you can prevent death coils and thus secure yourself important kills on Crypt Fiends, Abominations, and Destroyers, or even a hero. Miscellaneous. Build orders. As I have mentioned, Undead has several highly viable opening build orders. Build orders are a bit hard to explain properly with text, so I'll refer to this playlist of videos that the ReadCell has created. The fast expansion build is a bit far-fetched, but other three definitely have solid merits.